The forgotten power. Have you ever held a rosary in your hand and wondered if it was just a string of beads? For many, it looks like a relic of the past. Something grandmothers prayed in dimly lit chapels, something whispered before bedtime, and something more routine than revolutionary. And yet, hidden within these humble beads lies a secret power that has changed the course of history, healed countless souls, and toppled the fiercest enemies of peace. The Rosary is not simply a devotion, it is a weapon, a refuge, a roadmap to heaven itself. Imagine this, the year is 1571. The world trembles as an invading fleet threatens to extinguish Christendom forever. Vast warships fill the sea, banners whipping in the wind, cannons loaded, soldiers shouting in foreign tongues. The Christian forces are outnumbered, outgunned, and many believe they will be crushed. And yet, in a small chapel in Rome, Pope Pius V falls to his knees, rosary in hand. Across Europe, men, women, and children pray the Rosary with desperate intensity. And then it happens, the impossible victory. Against all odds, the Battle of Lepanto is won. Historians may call it strategy, weather, chance, but the faithful know. It was Mary's intercession through the Rosary. That is one secret of the Rosary. It bends the course of history. What kings, cannons, and crowns could not accomplish, Mary's beads did. But the secrets go even deeper. They are not only about nations and empires. They are about you. The Rosary, when prayed with love, unlocks graces that touch every corner of life. Maybe no one ever told you this. When you pray the Rosary, you are not just reciting prayers. You are stepping into the gospel. You walk with Mary into the stable of Bethlehem. You weep with her at the foot of the cross. You rejoice with her as heaven opens and Jesus ascends in glory. The Rosary is scripture in motion, the Bible on a string. St. Padre Pio called the Rosary his weapon. St. John Paul II called it his favorite prayer. Why? Because they had lived its secrets. Through it they found peace when the world raged. They found strength when their bodies weakened. They found hope when the future looked dark. And you can too. Let me tell you a story. A woman once came to me after Mass with tears in her eyes. "Father," she said, "my son was lost. Drugs, crime, despair. I had no words left. I just prayed the Rosary every night for years." Then she smiled. "And now he's clean, he's back in the church, and he thanks me for not giving up on him." The secret she discovered was simple. The Rosary is a mother's prayer, and a mother's prayer never fails. Another man, a soldier, shared how he carried his Rosary into battle. Bullets flew, chaos raged, but the beads in his pocket reminded him that he was never alone. He said, "It felt like Mary herself was walking beside me." He survived where others did not. That is the secret of the Rosary. It surrounds you with the presence of heaven. The Rosary is also a healer. Countless testimonies tell of peace washing over anxious hearts, of hope blooming in despair, of bodies healed after long novenas. Scientists speak of lowered stress, slower heart rates, calm focus, but the faithful know it goes beyond science. Each Hail Mary is a drop of balm poured over the wounds of the soul. And here is perhaps the greatest secret. When you pray the Rosary, you are not praying alone. Every bead links you to millions of voices across the world, across centuries, across cultures. You join children whispering in huts, monks chanting in abbeys, prisoners clutching beads in the dark, saints lifting their hearts to heaven. The Rosary is a chain of love that binds the church together, and every time you pray, you strengthen that chain. Some say the Rosary is boring. It's repetitive. But think of it this way, the repetition is not emptiness. It is like the heartbeat of a mother rocking her child. It is like waves lapping on the shore. It's like a lover repeating, "I love you, I love you, I love you." In its rhythm you find rest. In its constancy you find strength. In its simplicity you find heaven. And that is why the Rosary has endured when so many other devotions faded. Kings rise and fall, wars come and go, and cultures change, but the beads remain. Why? Because they are not just beads. They are lifelines. They are swords. They are keys. So if you've ever doubted, if you've ever thought the rosary is just for old ladies, hear this. No one ever told you its secrets. No one told you how it saved nations, rescued sinners, healed wounds, defeated demons, and drew down the power of heaven itself. But you know now. And the invitation is simple. Pick up your beads, pray, step into the mystery. Discover for yourself the secrets hidden in every Hail Mary, because here is the final truth. The rosary will not just change your day, it will change your life. The rosary, when you hold it in your hand, seems deceptively simple. Beads, a crucifix, a rhythm of prayers. And yet, this simplicity is precisely its secret. Like a key that opens a door, like a seed that grows into a towering tree. For those who know how to use it, the rosary is not just a devotion, it is a portal. With every bead, you step more deeply into the mystery of God's love. Think about it. When you pray the rosary, you are not inventing your own words, nor are you speaking into a void. Instead, you are picking up the very words of Scripture and the language of the Church. Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. These words are not poetry crafted by a human hand. They are heaven's greeting delivered by the Archangel Gabriel himself to a young woman in Nazareth. Each Hail Mary repeats this announcement of divine favor, echoing through centuries, reminding us Mary is full of grace, and through her, grace flows to us. But here is a secret too few are told. The rosary is not about Mary alone. Mary is the companion, yes, the mother guiding us, but the destination is always Jesus. Every bead is Christ-centered. Every mystery is gospel-centered. The joyful mysteries. They place you at the crib of Bethlehem, at the side of Mary and Joseph, rejoicing at the miracle of God with us. The sorrowful mysteries? They take you to Gethsemane, to the whip, to the crown of thorns, to Calvary. The glorious mysteries? They open the tomb, roll back the stone, reveal the risen Christ, and enthrone his mother in heaven. And the luminous mysteries, given to us by St. John Paul II, shine with the public life of Jesus. His baptism, his first miracle, his preaching, his transfiguration, his gift of the Eucharist. So here's the hidden treasure. When you pray the rosary, bead by bead, you are not merely repeating words. You are walking through the Gospels. It is Scripture, not read in ink, but lived in rhythm. It is the Bible on your lips, the Bible in your mind, the Bible pressed into your heart, and that is why saints have always clung to it. They knew that in praying the rosary, they were keeping company with Jesus and Mary. St. Louis de Montfort once said, "When the Holy Rosary is said well, it gives Jesus and Mary more glory and is more meritorious than any other prayer." Why? Because it is their story, and by praying it, you step into their story. Another secret, the rosary is a teacher, not just a prayer, but of life. The mysteries form a rhythm that mirrors our own existence. Joyful, sorrowful, glorious, luminous. Isn't that life itself? Days of laughter, days of tears, days of triumph, days of learning. When you pray the rosary daily, you begin to see your own life reflected in its mysteries. Your joy joins with Mary's. Your sorrow echoes Christ's. Your small victories become part of heaven's great glory. And your daily struggles are transfigured by divine light. Consider how the rosary teaches patience, how it softens anger, how it steadies fear. You cannot rush a rosary. It demands time, attention, surrender. And in its gentle repetition, it heals the restless mind. Scientists tell us repetition calms the brain, lowers anxiety, restores balance. But faith goes deeper. The rosary not only quiets you, it sanctifies you. Each prayer draws you nearer to God. Each mystery reshapes your soul to mirror Christ's. And yes, there is a secret of warfare. The rosary terrifies demons. Padre Pio, who carried his beads, always said plainly, "The rosary is the weapon for these times." Think about that. Not a sword, not an army, but beads in the hand of the faithful. Because the rosary is not just words, it is Scripture proclaimed, mysteries contemplated, love repeated again and again. And darkness cannot endure such light. One exorcist once confessed, "The rosary is more powerful against the devil than any modern weapon of war." Why? Because every Hail Mary is a dagger of light against the enemy of souls. Every Our Father is a cry to heaven that breaks chains. Every Glory Be is a shout of praise that crushes pride. The Rosary is not passive prayer. It is active combat disguised in gentleness. But perhaps the most overlooked secret of the Rosary is this. It is the prayer of the ordinary. It requires no education, no eloquence, no special place. You can pray it on a bus, in a hospital bed, while walking, while waiting, while drifting to sleep. You can pray it in joy or in tears, in faith or in doubt. And always it works. Why? Because Mary always takes our hand when we take up the beads. She fills in the gaps of our weakness with her strength. She makes up for our distracted minds with her purity of heart. She turns our stumbling whispers into a symphony before the throne of God. This is why saints, sinners, soldiers, mothers, prisoners, children, all have found their refuge in the Rosary. Because no matter where you are, no matter who you are, the Rosary meets you there. So here is the invitation for you. Do not see the Rosary as just another prayer. See it as a doorway. As you take the crucifix in your hands and begin with the sign of the cross, realize you are stepping into the mystery of Christ's love. As you finger each bead, realize you are moving one step closer to heaven. As you complete each decade, realize you are joining your life to the very gospel itself. The Rosary's secret is not that it is complicated, but that it is simple. And in that simplicity, God hides his greatest treasures, stories of transformation. If you've ever wondered whether the Rosary is just words, listen instead to the lives it has changed. Hidden in its humble beads are not only mysteries of Christ's life, but also countless testimonies of healing, peace, and impossible victories. These stories, though often whispered quietly by saints or discovered in the margins of history, are among the greatest secrets of the Rosary. Let's begin with the story of Lepanto. In 1571, the Christian world faced annihilation at sea. A massive fleet advanced under the banner of an empire bent on conquest. Outnumbered, the Christian ships trembled at the horizon. But Pope Pius V called the faithful to one weapon, the Rosary. Across Europe, voices rose in Hail Marys as sailors fingered their beads aboard creaking vessels. The clash came. The ocean boiled with cannon fire, sails ripped, decks burned, and against every odd victory came. The fleet was saved, and with it Europe itself. The Pope, far from the battle, had been praying the Rosary when he saw in a vision the miraculous triumph before news ever reached him. That victory was not chalked up to strategy, but to the weapon of prayer, the Rosary. But the secrets of the Rosary are not reserved for history's grand battles. They unfold in the quiet corners of ordinary lives. Padre Pio carried his beads everywhere, saying, "Bring me my weapon." He prayed dozens of rosaries daily, weaving every breath with prayer, and became a man through whom miracles flowed, healing the sick, reading souls, appearing in two places at once. Was this by his own strength? No. He called the Rosary his lifeline, the invisible chain linking him to heaven. Think too of Blessed Bartolo Longo. Once an enemy of the faith, a man immersed in the occult, even ordained into darkness. Yet when despair nearly drove him to suicide, a friend placed the Rosary into his hands. Bartolo resisted, but Mary claimed him. The Rosary slowly dismantled his chains of despair and rebuilt his soul in grace. He would later dedicate his life to promoting the Rosary, building a great shrine in Pompeii and earning the title, the Apostle of the Rosary. His life is a living testament that the beads we so easily overlook are powerful enough to rescue even the most lost. And let us not forget the everyday testimonies whispered quietly across centuries. The soldier in the trench, clutching his Rosary as bullets whistled overhead, who returned home unharmed while others perished. The mother, kneeling by the hospital bed, praying decade after decade as her child's fever broke. The elderly man in a lonely nursing home who found in his Rosary not isolation, but companionship. Mary sitting beside him, bead by bead. The student trembling with anxiety before an exam, who prayed a decade and found calm return. This is the hidden power of the Rosary. It meets people in their ordinary, messy human struggles and transforms them. Here is another secret. The Rosary is not bound by circumstance. Some of the greatest miracles happen when the Rosary is prayed not in ideal conditions, but in weakness. Distracted? Pray anyway. Exhausted? Pray anyway. Doubtful? Pray anyway. The beads do not demand perfection. They demand persistence. Mary is not keeping score of how distracted you were. She's keeping count of your faithfulness. And in that faithfulness, grace pours. A woman once testified that she had prayed the Rosary every night with her children, though often rushed, interrupted, imperfect. Years later, when her son fell into addiction, it was those same beads that pulled him back. She said, "The Rosary I thought was weak was the rope heaven used to pull my child out of the pit. This is why saints insist, never abandon the Rosary. Even if it feels dry, even if you feel unworthy, even if you think it makes no difference. Each Hail Mary is a seed planted unseen, waiting for its season to bloom. Some miracles you will witness immediately. Others will unfold years later, perhaps in ways you never imagined. But maybe the greatest secret is this. The Rosary does not only change circumstances, it changes you. When you pray it consistently, you begin to notice a shift inside your soul. Peace where there was anxiety, strength where there was weakness, patience where there was frustration. It is like being washed slowly by grace, bead after bead, until one day you realize, I am not the same. My heart has been softened, my will has been strengthened, my gaze has been lifted toward heaven. Cardinal Van Tuan, who was imprisoned for 13 years, much of it in solitary confinement, clung to his Rosary in the darkness of his cell. He later confessed that what sustained him was not food nor comfort, but those beads. They were his lifeline, his daily bread of peace. In him we see the Rosary is never wasted time. It is survival. So when you hear someone dismiss the Rosary as just repetition, remember this. Repetition is how love speaks. A husband tells his wife, I love you, not once, but daily, hourly. A mother soothes her child with the same lullaby again and again. Lovers repeat their affection endlessly, not because they forget, but because love delights in repetition. So it is with the Rosary. Each Hail Mary is love repeated, never exhausted, always new. The Rosary's secret is not that it offers instant fireworks, but that it offers steady fire, the kind that warms, purifies, illuminates, and endures. It is not the lightning strike, but the sun's steady rising, transforming everything it touches. And so when you hold your beads tonight, remember, you are joining a great cloud of witnesses, saints, soldiers, mothers, martyrs, children, who all clung to the same chain of grace. You are never alone in prayer. The Rosary binds heaven and earth, past and present, Christ and his people. This is its secret. In the Rosary, you do not pray alone. Mary prays with you, the saints pray with you, the Church prays with you, and God himself listens. The mystical ladder. If previous blocks showed how the Rosary changes lives in the visible world through battles, healings, conversions, now we must ascend into a deeper secret. The Rosary is not only a prayer of words, it is a mystical ladder, a pathway of contemplation, a school of the soul that draws you from surface repetition into the very heart of God. Think of Jacob's ladder in the book of Genesis, a stairway stretching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. That ladder is a symbol of prayer, the hidden channel between human hearts and the throne of God. The Rosary is such a ladder. At first, you begin with your feet on earth, distracted, weary, fingering beads, whispering familiar words. But as you continue bead after bead, something happens. Your mind begins to still, your heart begins to soften. The rhythm of the prayers becomes like waves, lifting you higher, gently but steadily, until you find yourself gazing into mystery itself. St. John Paul II described this mystical quality in Rosarium Virginis Mariae. He said the Rosary is not mechanical repetition, but a way to contemplate with Mary the face of Christ. That word, contemplate, is key. Contemplation is not busy thinking, it is gazing. It is resting. It is beholding. And through the Rosary, you learn contemplation by walking with Mary. She is the mother who takes your hand and says, "Look here at the child in the manger. Look here at the man carrying the cross. Look here at the risen Lord shining with glory. Here lies a secret many overlook. The Rosary is not meant to be prayed only with the lips, but with the imagination." Saint Ignatius taught about placing oneself inside the gospel scene. When you pray the Annunciation, do not simply say the words. See the humble home in Nazareth. Feel the stillness of the room as Mary kneels in prayer. See the sudden brilliance of Gabriel's arrival. Hear the trembling in Mary's voice as she whispers, "Be it done unto me." When you pray the crucifixion, do not recite mechanically. Stand at Calvary. Hear the hammer strike the nails. See the tears on Mary's cheeks. Feel the shadow of the cross stretch over you. This is the mystical dimension. The Rosary is not escape from life, but entry into the life of Christ. It trains your soul to see Him, to hear Him, to walk with Him, not only in prayer but in daily life. And then something greater happens. As you pray decade after decade, the words become background music, freeing your soul to rest in God. Like a child rocked gently in a mother's arms, your heart begins to quiet. The noise of the world fades, and suddenly, without effort, you find yourself not just reciting but resting. This is contemplation. This is union. The Rosary, in its simplicity, leads you there, bead by bead. St. Louis de Montfort once wrote that those who pray the Rosary faithfully will find themselves gradually transformed into the likeness of Christ. This transformation is not loud. It does not always announce itself, but day by day, it chisels the soul into holiness. And here is the secret. Many who have walked deep in the spiritual life have said that the Rosary prepared them for mystical graces. Padre Pio, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, Pope John Paul II all carried beads. For them, the Rosary was not a small devotion. It was their anchor, their ladder, their doorway into God's embrace. But what makes the Rosary mystical is also what makes it universal. It is simple enough for a child, yet deep enough for a saint. A child can hold the beads and pray Hail Mary with innocence. A contemplative monk can hold the same beads and plunge into silence so profound it brushes eternity. The same prayer, yet infinitely deep. This is the paradoxical secret. The Rosary meets you where you are, and it grows with you. Another mystical secret, the Rosary is time outside of time. When you pray the mysteries, you are not recalling past events like reading history. You are entering them, because in God there is no past or future, only eternal now. So when you pray the Nativity, you are kneeling at the crib. When you pray the Resurrection, you are standing at the tomb as the stone rolls back. When you pray the Coronation of Mary, you are present in heaven's throne room as she is crowned Queen. The Rosary collapses time. It draws eternity into your present moment. That is why mystics often describe the Rosary as a chain of light, binding heaven and earth. Every bead you finger is like a step into eternity, pulling you closer to divine light. And the deeper you enter, the more you realize this is not about saying prayers. This is about becoming prayer. Do you see how radical this is? The Rosary is not just a devotion among many. It is a school of love, a path of union, a mystical ladder stretching from your distracted human heart into the blazing heart of God. No wonder saints have insisted, pray it daily. No wonder Mary herself in apparitions like Fatima begged, pray the Rosary every day. She was not giving a suggestion. She was giving a secret weapon, a key, a ladder for your soul. And here lies perhaps the most beautiful secret. The Rosary, prayed well, teaches you to see God everywhere. After enough years of meditating on Christ's mysteries, you begin to recognize Him not only in the beads, but in your daily life. You see the Annunciation in every new beginning. You see the visitation in every act of kindness. You see the Passion in every suffering. You see the Resurrection in every joy. Your life itself becomes a rosary, a string of mysteries unfolding, bead by bead, until the final mystery, your entrance into eternal glory. The eternal companion, we have walked through the hidden layers of the rosary, its battlefield power, its quiet transformation of lives, its mystical ladder into the presence of God. Yet there is one final secret, one that few grasp until they have lived with the rosary for many years. It is this: the rosary prayed faithfully is not merely a set of beads. It becomes a companion, a shield for your journey, a crown of glory for your soul, and a faithful guide that will walk with you from the first breath of prayer to your last heartbeat. Have you ever noticed that the rosary feels alive in your hand? Perhaps you have picked up your beads after weeks of forgetting them, only to sense a warmth, a familiarity, a pull to prayer. The saints have described the rosary almost as a living friend. St. Padre Pio called it the weapon. St. John Paul II called it his favorite prayer. St. Louis de Montfort called it the mystical rose tree. But behind these titles lies a deeper truth. When you pray the rosary consistently, it begins to feel less like an object and more like a companion. Think of it. Beads worn smooth by fingers are not only reminders of prayer, they are testimony. Every Our Father said in desperation, every Hail Mary whispered in hope, every glory be sung in thanksgiving leaves a trace. Your beads carry your story. They absorb your tears. They remember your joy. They hold the invisible weight of countless moments you entrusted to God, and when you take them up again, they meet you where you are, ready to walk with you once more. Here lies the final secret. The rosary is not just prayer you say. It is prayer that walks with you through life and even into eternity. Imagine your final day on earth. For some, it will come suddenly. For others, slowly, with many days of preparation. But for the one who has lived with the rosary, that moment will not be one of terror. Why? Because the rosary will be there like an old friend. It will be the beads you clutch on your hospital bed, the prayer whispered when your voice grows weak, the chain of light that Mary herself will take in her hands as she leads you across the threshold of death. This is why tradition says that those who die with the rosary are never alone. For in that moment, Mary herself comes. She has listened to your Hail Marys for years. She has walked with you through mysteries of sorrow and glory, and she will not abandon you when the final mystery arrives. The rosary then is more than devotion. It is covenant, a bond, a lifeline tying you to the Mother of God, and through her to Jesus Christ himself. When you take up the beads daily, you are not just practicing piety. You are entering into a living relationship. One that will guard you, guide you, and one day escort you into the joy of heaven. Let us make this even more concrete. The rosary is your shield. In a world of confusion, temptation, and spiritual darkness, it surrounds you with protection. Every Hail Mary is like a spark of light driving back shadows. Every decade prayed in faith wraps your soul in armor. The devil fears this prayer, not because the words are complicated, but because they are simple, humble, relentless. The enemy trembles when you hold those beads because he knows they bind you to Mary, the woman who crushed his head. The rosary is also your crown. Imagine with every prayer placing a rose at Mary's feet. Decade after decade, you weave for her a crown of roses, and in return, she places a crown of grace upon your soul. This is why the rosary is called the crown of the Blessed Virgin, but it is also mysteriously a crown for you. For when your life ends, your rosary will be remembered in heaven as a garland of prayers, each bead a jewel, each mystery a flame of love, and most tenderly, the rosary is your companion, a friend who is always near. When you are lonely, it is there. When you are anxious, it calms. When you are joyful, it magnifies your thanksgiving. When you do not know how to pray, it prays for you. Think of how many saints clung to their rosary in their final moments. Saint Bernadette, Saint Maximilian Kolbe, Saint Teresa of Calcutta. For them, the beads were not mere tools. They were trusted companions, reminders of Mary's nearness and symbols of the hope of heaven. This is the ultimate secret. The Rosary is more than a devotion. It is a way of life, a golden chain binding you to heaven, a rhythm of prayer that sustains you in sorrow and multiplies your joy, a shield, a crown, a companion. And if you are faithful to it day after day, it will carry you not only through life's storms, but into life everlasting. So tonight, as you hold your beads, remember, you are not alone. Every Hail Mary is echoed by heaven. Every Our Father joins you to a chorus of saints. Every Glory Be opens a window into eternity. And Mary, your mother, is listening. She will never tire of your voice. She will never grow weary of your prayer. She will never abandon you, not now, not ever. This is the secret no one told you, but one that every saint discovered. The Rosary, prayed with faith, becomes the story of your soul. And when your story ends on earth, it will be the Rosary that opens the first chapter of eternity.